The mics aren't working.
Well, let's keep going anyway. Paul, would you read the roll? Board call.
Dear Supervisor, please be advised that the Trumpealeau County Board of Supervisors will meet at 7 p.m. on October 15, 2018 in the County Board room. All County Board members' claims are due in County Board's office by noon on October 5th, 2018, so they can be prepared for audit committee approval. Sincerely, Paul Severson, County Clerk.
Thank you, Paul. And the roll, please.
Richard Fry.
Here.
Douglas Winters.
Here.
Sally Miller.
Here.
Richard Sasha.
Here.
John Schultz.
Here.
George Brandt.
Here.
Beth Killian.
Here.
Randy Tollefson.
Here.
Michelle Haynes.
Here.
John Austin.
Here.
Chuck Wallach.
Here.
Tim Zeglin.
Here.
Olin Femright.
Here.
Michael Nelson. He is going to be out of Dove in the next couple days, so he's doing really well. Jeannie Nutter is at a wedding in Colorado. Kurt Skoyan.
Here.
Ron Johnson.
Here.
15 and 2.
All right, thank you, Paul. I will certify that the open meeting law requirements have been met by due posting, and we have not amended the agenda tonight, but with the board's approval, I would like to move one item, advance it a little bit. That would be item 7C, the resolution from the Personnel and Bargaining Committee. Amy is here, and I think rather than keep her here through all of the Exec Finance Committee resolutions, it would be really convenient if we would move that up. So I'd like to move 7C up right after 7A and get that done. So with that change, I'd ask for a motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
I think the motion came from Supervisor Austin. The second came from Supervisor Femright. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed indicate by the same sign. No one is opposed. The motion passes.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd like
Go
to
on.
just make a comment. I got a call from Mike Nelson this afternoon, and he had a very bad heart attack a couple of weeks ago, and if his daughter-in-law, who was a registered nurse, wouldn't have been there to help him, he said he maybe wouldn't have been around to talk about it. But they took him to the doctor, and he's been in the hospital, and he's been the last few days in that just out of Osseo. They got a nice
Dove.
rehabilitation center there. And he said he wanted to be here in the worst way, but they wouldn't release him for the meeting tonight. So
All right,
I
thank
think
you.
we want to
We'll-
wish him well.
We wish him well. We take that as a statement of the best of intentions from Supervisor Nelson.
Can I introduce him? Or do you want that later?
I suppose you might as well do it since we've
Okay,
already interrupted.
Thanks, Olin. This is Tamara Munson. She's from Strum. She's my new deputy that will be the secretary for the county board. Stacy is helping out tonight, so that's why we're 5 up here instead of 4.
They're all crowding me. All right, thank you, Paul. Well, believe it or not, we did adopt the agenda, and we're going to move on to the minutes. Is there a motion to adopt the minutes?
I'll second.
The motion comes from Supervisor Wallach, the second from Supervisor Killian. Any discussion or changes to the minutes?
We did have one typo, and I think we fixed it.
Yep.
So it's already been changed.
Fingers move too fast.
It wasn't the word,
It's not spelling, it's typing.
it was the word resolution. I know it was that, but it's fixed, so maybe we can't even find it. It's fixed already, so.
Actually, it's not, but it's obviously a misspelling.
Oh.
There's an additional T in the next to the last line on page 2, there's at least in my copy, there's an additional T in the word resolution, but it's still very much understandable as the word resolution, so I don't think we need to make any change there. So that was the only discussion about a change to the minutes. Let's see, we've had a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of adopting the minutes as posted, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, indicate by the same sign. No one is opposed, and the minutes are approved. For the appearances, we have one proclamation. Paul, would you favor us with that? Yeah, I've read it once.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Whereas the Trempealeau County Domestic Abuse Task Force, of which many county employees are members, along with representatives of the community and the Trempealeau County Outreach Office of New Horizons Shelter and Outreach Centers, is commemorating October 2018 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And whereas the designation of October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month is to bring awareness of the ongoing problem of domestic violence, primarily focusing on the victims who have suffered abuse, and to celebrate the achievements of domestic abuse advocacy groups throughout the state and nation. And whereas through the inspiration, courage, and persistence of survivors, their friends, and their support groups, legislation has been enacted to provide protection and services for those suffering from emotional and physical abuse. And whereas even though there have been many successes in reducing domestic violence, the problem has not been eliminated and still persists, with the biggest of cities to the from the biggest of cities to the smallest of towns. And whereas across this nation, domestic abuse agencies, social service agencies, government agencies, government officials, and other groups and organizations are joining in the effort to bring awareness to the continuing problem of domestic violence and the need to help victims. Now, therefore, I, Tim Zeglin, Chair of the Trempealeau County Board of Supervisors, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2018 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in the County of Trempealeau, in order to reaffirm that helping victims of domestic abuse in all its forms is a priority to this county.
Thank you, Paul.
Signed by Tim Zeglin, Chair.
And I will sign it. I want to thank Supervisor Miller for bringing this to our attention and for organizing last week's convocation. What would we call that?
An awareness.
Consciousness-raising session, which was very, very successful and very, very well attended. So
And thank you for attending and reading. That was very much appreciated.
You're welcome. Let's move on to the business of this board, and we'll start with the first resolution. As usual, it comes from the Environmental and Land Use Committee.
No, after this one. Whereas W.L. Smith Farms Incorporated, landowner petitioner, has requested the rezone of a parcel of land in the town of Arcadia for the purpose of an indoor wood waste recycling facility. And whereas the rezone is on approximately 14 acres more or less, and whereas a public hearing was held pursuant to section 59.69 parentheses 5 of the Wisconsin statutes, and whereas the town of Arcadia supports the rezone request, and whereas the Environment and Land Use Committee moved to rezone this parcel from transitional ag, TA, to industrial, IND, and it appears that the zoning change request is appropriate under the circumstances. Now be it resolved that the county adopt the attached ordinance amending the zoning district boundaries as indicated, introduced by Environment and Land Use Committee, George Brandt, Beth Killian, Aaron Kidd, John Schultz, Kurt Skoyen, Henry Schultz.
Thank you, Paul. The floor is open for a motion.
Second.
Who had the motion? Okay, the motion came from Supervisor Ossen, the second from Supervisor Femright, and now the floor is open for discussion. I imagine, as usual, is Kevin here. Kevin will give us some background information. This will be Kevin Lean, Supervisor of the Land Use Department. Sure. Ours was off.
There, yep, no, it's on now.
It's on now, okay.
Good evening. The Environment and Land Use Committee held a public hearing on the 5th of October for W.L. Smith Farms to rezone the proposed area that Ann has on the overhead of 14 acres from transitional agriculture to industrial. If you notice, the yellow areas are what's currently in the city limits of Arcadia. This is immediately to the east and a little bit north, right in there. Yep, that'd be the area. The rezone to industrial is for a wood recycling business where they recycle wood products, primarily from Ashley, used for animal bedding, boiler fuel, and landscape mulch. Everything will be inside. They currently operate this facility off from County Road G in the town right now. They've kind of outgrown that, and it's an outdoor facility, so they're battling with the weather. So this rezone would allow them to operate all underneath a roof. During the public hearing, we did have some people come to testify for information only. There was no opposition. We did have a letter from the town supporting the rezone request as well.
Thank you, Kevin. Any questions for Kevin or any comments?
Thank you.
Okay, hearing none, we'll move to a vote.
John Austin?
Yeah.
Chuck Wallach?
Yes.
Tim Zeglin?
Yes.
Olin Femright? Kurt Skoyen?
Yes.
Ron Johnson?
Yes.
Richard Fry?
Yes.
Douglas Winters?
Yes.
Sally Miller?
Yes.
Richard Seisha?
Yes.
John Schultz?
Yes.
George Brandt?
Yes.
Beth Killian?
Yes.
Randy Tollefson?
Yes.
Michelle Haynes?
Yes.
15-0.
15-0, the motion passed and the rezone is granted. Again, this will be out of order if you're following your packets, but the board made no objections to moving the budget amendment from the Human Resources Department ahead, and that's the next one Paul's going to read.
Whereas the Human Resources Department will experience a budget shortfall in wages and salaries due to hiring a part-time Human Resources clerk from October 2017 to April 2018. And whereas the hire was necessary to assist the department during unanticipated staff turnover, the Human Resources Department must request a transfer of $5,775.98 from the general fund account in account 101.51430 per attached schedule in order to fund the 2018 shortfall in wages and salaries. And whereas the Human Resources Department will experience a budget shortfall in the employer portion of health insurance premiums because of a 2018 qualifying life event of the Human Resources Generalist. And whereas due to the unanticipated event, the Human Resources Department must request a transfer of $2,558.76 from the general fund account to account 101.51430 per attached schedule in order to fund the employer responsible portion of the health insurance premiums due. Whereas the Human Resources Department has based budget requests on calculated and forecasted figures. However, some events are unpredictable. The budget shortfalls are due to unforeseen costs associated with the responsibility of the department. Now be it resolved that by the Trempealeau County Board of Supervisors that the board authorize $8,334.74 to be taken from the unassigned general fund and placed in the Human Resources expense accounts per the attached sheet. Introduced by Personnel Bargaining Committee, Mike Nelson, Ron Johnson, Tim Zeglin, George Brandt, Gene Nutter, and Executive Finance Committee, John Austin, Richard Fry, Richard Seisha, Tim Zeglin, George Brandt.
Thank you, Paul. The floor is open for a motion.
I'd move to adopt the resolution.
It came from
I'm
I
wrestling
think George
for
beat
it,
you
Ron.
by a hair, but you got the second. Okay. So Supervisor, the motion to adopt comes from Supervisor Brandt. The second comes from Supervisor Johnson. The floor is open for discussion or questions. And I would add that the Director of the Human Resources Department, Amy Spergel, is here to answer questions. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote.
Randy Tollefson.
Yes.
Michelle Haynes.
Yes.
John Austin.
Yeah.
Chuck Wallach.
Yes.
Tim Zeglin.
Yes.
Olin Femright.
Yes.
Kurt Skoyen.
Yes.
Ron Johnson.
Yes.
Richard Fry.
Yes.
Douglas Winters.
Yes.
Sally Miller.
Yes.
Richard Seisha.
Yes.
John Schultz.
Yes.
George Brandt.
Yes.
Beth Killian.
Yes.
15-0.
All right, the motion passes 15-0, and that transfer from the general fund is authorized. All right, we'll move back to the three resolutions that come from the Executive Finance Committee alone, and that committee alone. The first one about the gas station.
Whereas Trumpealeau County has been working with MSA Professional Services to remediate the contaminated property known as the former Whitehall Service Station located at 18184 Irvin Street in Whitehall. And whereas MSA Professional Services is in the process of submitting a site closure request to the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, WDNR, because the remediation is complete to the extent possible. And whereas the WDNR charges a closure fee in the amount of $1,700, $1,050 for review fee, $300 for GIS registry fee, and $350 for groundwater issues, to be paid at the time of the site closure request. And whereas the closure fee is not eligible for PECFA reimbursement, and such fee will need to come from the general fund. Now, be it resolved that the Trempealeau County Board of Supervisors approves the closure fee of $1,700 made payable to the Department of Natural Resources to be submitted by MSA Professional Services with the site closure request. Acted on by Executive Finance Committee, John Austin, Tim Zeglin, Richard Fry, Richard Seisha, George Brandt.
Thank you, Paul. The floor is open for a motion. Motion to approve from Mr. Fry.
Second.
Second from Supervisor Brandt. Is there any questions? Are there any questions or discussion? Supervisor Skoyen.
Yeah, where is this station at?
And I think I'm going to turn this over, I know where it is, but I'm going to turn this over to our Corp Counsel. He is probably the best qualified to talk about it.
I believe it's the site across from, is it the Oak Inn?
Oak Park.
Oak Park.
Oak Park Inn. It's right
Across
by,
from it or
Just
well,
next to it?
the side.
On the
There's a
side
street
street,
in
yeah,
between.
across
Same
the,
side?
yes, same
Okay.
side, yeah.
So
across the street.
nobody that had ownership of that station ever done the cleanup that was supposed to be done, is that it?
That
Well, we took it on tax foreclosure, so
foreclosure.
that's how the county got it.
That's how the county got in there, okay.
So they've been working on getting that cleaned up, and now it's to the point where it can't get cleaned up anymore. So they're submitting the closure request. It will always be listed as a contaminated site, but the level of contamination is low enough where it's not considered to be a risk to human, but it will always be listed as a contaminated site.
And Rick, am I correct in assuming that if this agency approves this, then it is available for, we would be able to sell it?
Correct. Once the WDNR signs off on it, it's closed, yes, then it would be available for use in any form.
All right, thank you. Mr. Tolleson.
Chairman Zeglin, this is for Rick. Is that going to be anything that the county can sell and be buildable property again?
It certainly can be sold. To the extent it can be buildable, it will depend on what the individual or company would want to build on it, complying with regulations. Again, because it's listed as a contaminated site, it depends on what it would be used for. So it potentially, yes, can be. I just until we know what it is or someone requests it, we won't know for sure. It's probably not going to be real attractive to individuals to build on because of the contamination, but it's possible.
Any other questions? All right, hearing no more questions, we'll move to a vote.
Douglas Winters.
Yes.
Sally Miller.
Yes.
Richard Seisha.
Yes.
John Schultz.
Yes.
George Brandt.
Yes.
Beth Killian.
Yes.
Randy Tollefson.
Yes.
Michelle Haynes.
Yes.
John Austin.
Yes.
Chuck Wallach.
Yes.
Tim Zeglin.
Yes.
Olin Femright.
Yes.
Kurt Skoyen.
Yes.
Ron Johnson.
Yes.
Richard Fry.
Yes.
15-0.
And the motion passes 15-0, so we're okay to go ahead with this. The next resolution is the resolution for county library support. Paul, would you read that, please?
There's an extra W at the beginning, just forget that one, okay? Whereas Trempealeau County, whereas Trumpealeau County has 9 in-county libraries located in the cities of Arcadia, Blair, Galesville, Independence, Osseo, and Whitehall, and the villages of Ettrick, Strum, and Trempealeau. And whereas several years ago, the state of Wisconsin passed legislation for counties to financially support local libraries for circulation for non-resident borrowers, which includes our local in-county libraries and adjacent out-of-county libraries. And whereas the county is mandated to reimburse those libraries at a 70% reimbursement rate for Trumpealeau County residents that are considered non-resident borrowers. And whereas the levy required for libraries is only calculated on non-resident usage. And whereas the levy for libraries falls outside the levy limit requirements, so does not affect county funding for operations. And whereas librarians from City of Arcadia, Jenny Lisinski, City of Blair, Chris McNamer, City of Galesville, Meredith Haug, City of Independence, Tanya Kulig, City of Osseo, Gina Waters, City of Whitehall, Amanda Heggie, and villages of Ettrick, Jody Hanneman, Village of Strum, Dawn Herring, and the Village of Trempealeau, Jessica Schonover, have requested support at a higher reimbursement level for their libraries. And whereas the Executive and Finance Committee has reviewed the request and recommends supporting the 9 libraries at 100% funding level for 2019. Now therefore be it resolved that Trempealeau County Board of Supervisors approves supporting the cities of Arcadia, Blair, Galesville, Independence, Osseo, Whitehall, and villages of Ettrick, Strum, and Trempealeau at a 100% reimbursement rate for non-resident circulation in 2019. Introduced by Executive Finance Committee, John Lawson, Dick Fry, Dick Seisha, Tim Zeglin, George Brandt.
Thank you, Paul. The floor is...
I'll make that a motion.
All right, we have a motion from Supervisor Femright, a second from Supervisor Johnson, and the floor is open for questions or discussion.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I will
Mr. Brandt.
support this resolution, but I'd also like to point out that many of our county library directors are here tonight, and at least a couple I know, Amanda and Jessica, would be happy to answer any questions that the board has.
All right, thank you. And I think we all know Amanda and Jessica. Thank you for identifying yourself. Are there any questions? Supervisor Femright.
I've got a comment. I think libraries are very, very important. I think they're the backbone of our future. So I'd encourage people to vote in favor of the library at 100%.
Thank you, Lola. Any other questions or comments?
We have a couple of good salesmen up there, so I think you should be allowed to.
Did you say salesman?
Yeah, they can sell this.
Okay, well, are you asking for?
I would like them to make some comments that explain, like the out-of-county versus regular funding for them.
All right, we have a specific question from Supervisor Ossie.
Okay. And you would like us to explain that?
What this funding goes for.
Oh, okay. Go for it.
Okay. Am I being picked up by the microphone well enough? Okay. So, this funding goes for operating expenses for the library. Every year we come before you and tell you all of the things that we do. And as we have been working here, so let me back up a little bit. So the municipalities that libraries are located in fund libraries. And then because we live in the wonderful state of Wisconsin, people who live in a town that do not have a library are able to use libraries in any municipality and be taxed for them, not have to pay for a special library card. And so throughout the year, we keep track of every single circulation, and we take our operating costs, and then we take the total circulations that we have every year, and that operating cost is divided by the circulations, and then that gives us a dollar amount per circulation. Now, to be clear, as we have said before, this cost is for every service that the library provides. It's not just for the books that we circulate. This goes for programs, the summer reading program, financial literacy classes that we offer. Everything that goes on at the library is included in that dollar amount that comes out for circulation. And we were asked at the Executive Finance Committee meeting about reasons why we need steady funding. I know that Galesville is counting on having steady open hours for their library, and we were asked beyond hours and staffing and books and programs, but you know that is the thing that we provide, and so without knowing more than that, I can't give you better reasons than that. I guess I'm biased, but I think that this funding makes our towns worth living in, because we live so far away. I mean, libraries are always great, but we live so far away from every other resource that this funding makes everything that we do possible.
And I think one way that I like to think about it is, it's almost like it's, according to the state, it's at least 70% they asked for libraries to be reimbursed for the costs that we serve for patrons that don't live in our village. It would be like you going to Walmart and asking for that $10 item and being willing to pay $7 or $8.50, because the same services are being offered whether you live in the municipality and pay that tax for your library, or if you live outside of the municipality and use the library. So it's just a nice way to think of it, that you're getting the exact same services, and in the past we had been reimbursed at that level of 70%. Then we moved up to 85%, which was fantastic. And so to see, like at last year it was 100%, so we were getting back everything that we had spent already for those individuals who used our library.
Mr. Chair.
Let me finish. John, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
One more thing, I think she should be recognized as Librarian of the Year.
Yes,
Oh,
you have
yeah.
the Librarian of the
Just
Year
for-
here.
And Supervisor Miller, Mr. Winters was ahead of you. So, Supervisor
I
Winters.
got asked, how many libraries in this county go to the townships for money?
I don't know. My library directors that are here, do any of you get a voluntary donation from your townships?
So then how much money you get from the county for each library? From county taxes?
So I think you,
I don't have the number.
okay, yeah. So I,
Dick brought that one. It's on about the second page towards the bottom.
We're cooperating in answering this question, I see. That's very heartwarming.
And take
Mr. Fry, have you found?
95 away from that, 9,500 away, because that's
Winding River.
that's Winding Rivers, but then you also have,
What, just $95?
$100.
Oh, no.
you also have 39,000 that are your adjacent counties.
Yes.
Doug, we're
Well,
working
we're
towards
still
an
there.
answer here. That's what this is all about. We're getting there.
So
I gotta
390,000,
wait for next month's our council meeting.
$390,681 is 100% reimbursement to in-county libraries. And that is for those individuals who actually checked out an item.
So that is the absolute number. That's,
Yep.
Is that the number you were looking for?
And that's from
What I'm looking
2017's
for?
numbers.
I mean, no, is that,
I think what-
does that answer your question?
I think what Mr. Winters wants to bring up again is that the town of Trempealeau is a huge user of the library in the village of Trempealeau. And the town of Trempealeau gives a voluntary donation each year for the support of the library. And Mr. Winters believes that that is double taxation.
I'm right.
He has spoke
False, says I'm
He
right.
has spoke
Yep.
to the town of Trempealeau many times, and they do not feel that that is the truth or that's the case. So they voluntarily give a donation to, and it's just my library.
All right, thank you. We're not going any
I
further.
figured it.
Supervisor Miller.
We'll hear this again next month.
So I guess, and I ask this every year, because the way it's worded, it always
It's confusing.
loses
I
me.
know.
But this, what this is basically, this is not an allocation. This is a reimbursement. So you've already spent the money, you've already
Absolutely,
provided the
exactly.
service, you've already got the numbers.
Yes.
And so,
And
and so anybody in the county who, like, I live in a township, and I have used every single library in this county at one point this year, so the county is covering my usage of this,
Absolutely, yes.
because there's no other way for me as a member of a township
Right.
for my township to provide.
Yeah, so for
Okay.
example, like in Illinois, people who don't live in a town with a library
Right.
have to purchase a library.
And I came from Illinois, and that
Oh,
was
yep, yep,
that was what I
okay.
had to do. So
Yep.
this is why I always get a little confused, because I'm
Yeah.
used to paying for the library.
And if I could tell you too, so in the village of Trempealeau, they pay, and this was from 2017's numbers, they pay $47.74 per capita for library tax. That goes to the Trempealeau Library. And I can only give you my numbers because that's what I have in front of me. For county users, that taxpayer for the exact same services pays $26.41. So there's a huge discrepancy. Our municipalities are funding our libraries. My library, 60% of my operating costs come from the village of Trempealeau. Not 60% of my users come from the village of Trempealeau, but 60% of my operating costs revenue comes from them. So to get the same exact service as a county resident, you're not paying library tax. You are getting that same service for $26.41 compared to the village of Trempealeau individuals who are paying $47.74. And you would find that to be true of all the libraries.
Yeah, and it varies from library to library, but it's about a third to a half of the library users who are coming from outside of other
It's
businesses.
a reimbursement.
It's a reimbursement, yes. Yep.
Thank you for the clarification. Are there any more questions? And this is a funding request or a funding resolution, so this will require a 2/3 vote. All right, any questions? Okay, let's move to a vote.
Yes.
Kurt Skoyen.
Yes.
Ron Johnson.
Yes.
Richard Fry.
Yes.
Douglas Winters.
Yes.
Sally Miller.
Yes.
Richard Seisha.
Yes.
John Schultz.
Yes.
George Brandt.
Yes.
Beth Killian.
Yes.
Randy Tollefson.
Yes.
Michelle Haynes.
Yes.
John Austin.
Yes.
Chuck Wallach.
Yes.
Tim Zeglin.
Yes.
15-0.
The motion passes, and the libraries are funded at their desired 100% for this next year.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move to the tough one. Before Paul's going to read the resolution that has to do with the allocating the ATC payment, I will have some background or preliminary comments to make before I open the floor for motion. So those of you who are just champing at the bit to amend this document, you'll have to wait for a few minutes while I give some background information. But Paul, would you please read it for us?
Okay. Whereas in 2017, the American Transmission Company, a division of Xcel Energy Corporation, authorized a one-time environmental impact fee payment of $1,237,958 to Trempealeau County. And whereas the treasurer of Trempealeau County received this payment in April of 2018 and placed the payment in a line item account. And whereas the Trempealeau County Board of Supervisors has not yet determined the allocation of this payment, and whereas all the standing committees of the county were asked by the County Board Chairman in May of 2018 to submit proposals for the allocation of this payment before the annual November budget meeting. And whereas during the months of June, July, August, and September, the following committees submitted proposals for the following purposes in the following amounts. PTED Committee proposed $300,000 be used for a revolving loan fund. PTED Committee proposed $200,000 be used for a county tourism grant fund. Highway Committee proposed $1,237,958 be used for bridge construction projects. Property Committee proposed $650,000 be used for purchase of a standby electrical generator for the courthouse. Extension, Education, and Communications Committee proposed $2,500 be used for purchase of an aerial drone. Executive Finance Committee proposed $44,000 be used for purchase of computer tablets for County Board supervisors. And whereas the combined sum of all these proposals totals $2,434,458, a total that exceeds the impact fee payment. Whereas a multiplying factor of 0.5085 applied to each proposal would result in each proposal receiving a proportionate share of the impact fee in the following amounts. All products of the multiplication process are rounded to the nearest dollar. PTED Committee proposal of $300,000, the quantity then multiplied by the 0.5085 yields $152,554. PTED Committee proposal of $200,000, the quantity when multiplied by the 0.5085 yields $101,700. Highway Committee proposal for $1,237,959, the quantity when multiplied by the 0.5085 yields $629,502. Property Committee proposal for $650,000, the quantity when multiplied by 0.5085 yields $330,525. Extension, Education, and Communication Committee proposal for $2,500, the quantity when multiplied by 0.5085 yields $1,271. The Executive Finance Committee proposal for $44,000, the quantity when multiplied by the 0.5085 yields $22,374. And because any portion of the funds that are not allocated will be of no benefit to the county, any portion of the environmental fee payment that are not allocated by this resolution will be placed in the general fund to be used in the future as the county board deems suitable. Now be it resolved that the ATC environmental impact fees payment be allocated in the various projects listed above in the amounts described above after application of the multiplying factor to the original committee proposals, and any remaining balance be transferred to the general fund. Acted on by Executive Finance Committee, John Austin, Tim Zeglin, Richard Fry, Richard Seisha, George Brandt.
We did have a committee approval, Dave.
We did, but it's not on.
Not here, okay. All right, so thank you, Paul. It sounds complicated, but so let me try to offer a few words of explanation. Since there were so many numbers in there. First of all, I did draft the resolution, but the Executive Finance Committee reviewed it and passed it forward to the full board. The reason I decided to handle the money this way was twofold. First of all, I wanted to make sure that the money went to work for the county government in some way. And I'm going to take a little bit more of your time to remind everyone on the board that other municipalities also received money from the ATC company. The town of Ettrick received a one-time payment of $376,339 and an estimated annual payment of $45,161. The town of Gale received a one-time payment of $380,494,000 plus a annual payment of $45,659. The town of Preston received a one-time payment of $481,035 plus an estimated annual payment of $57,724. The town of Ettrick received $90 as a one-time payment and an estimated annual payment of $11. My point is that other communities and other government entities that were impacted by the ATC transmission line also received money, and the county's portion is just what you've already seen, close to $1,238,000. Wanted to make sure that we used the money that was allocated to us, to the county. Another purpose I had in doing things this way was to allow the board to keep control of the money all the way through the process. I thought that we could learn from the way the CapEx 2020 money was allocated, that the way that was handled could have been improved on, and that the existing structure, the board and the standing committees were sufficient. There was enough of a structure to make a decision about how to spend the money, especially since eventually the final decision would come before the board anyway, regardless of what any ad hoc committee might come up with. The resolution is written expecting that it will be amended. So the board has the option, every member of the board, every one of you, has the option to amend the resolution. The requested money was almost double the existing payment, and so by applying that approximately 51% multiplying factor, every proposal got a chance to be acted upon. Every proposal got a chance to come before the board. But the board can fund 100% of any one of these items. The board can fund 0% of any one of these items. The board can, what else? Oh, the board could vote to put some money in a non-lapsing fund and thereby create a sort of bank account for any of these items. So the range of possibilities is broad, is wide, and is really up to you. You heard all the proposals. You've heard all the proposals that were made by the various standing committees, and now really it's up to you.
We don't have a motion or second.
No, we don't, because I asked everyone to just hold tight until I finished those preliminary remarks. All right, the floor is open for a motion.
I make a motion for the sake of discussion that we pass this resolution.
I second that. We have a motion and a second to pass. John, does that mean pass it as written?
Mr. Chair.
Let's open the discussion.
It'll be amended. It'll definitely be amended at this point.
Mr. Chair.
As written.
I'd like to propose an amendment to the...
Yeah, we'll get there.
We're getting
We have a motion. We have a second from Ron Johnson. All right. Any discussion on the original? Well, now the floor is open for discussion.
I would like to amend the resolution to simplify it somewhat, but also in the spirit of Mr. Ziglin's original intention, which was to begin a conversation, but also to try to be fair, I think, but also to well, here, let me suggest this amendment. First of all, to eliminate the last whereas. In other words, to basically eliminate the language after whereas the combined sum of all these proposals totals $2,434,458, a total that exceeds the impact fee, to basically erase the rest of the language and to replace it with this. The secretary has this language in front of her.
He already gave it to you.
Whereas, this will be the language, whereas the distribution of the impact fee, which adheres to the spirit of the state statute and represents a commitment on the part of the county board to be good stewards of the county's infrastructure and best serves the citizens and businesses of the county, is desirable. Now therefore be it resolved that the ATC environmental impact fee payment be allocated to the following projects in the following amounts: the Highway Committee, $600,000, the Property Committee, $325,000, PTED Committee, $250,000, the Extension, Education, and Communications Committee, $2,500, and then to finish by saying, and any remaining balance be transferred to the general fund. And if I could get a second, I'd be willing to speak to that.
Well, first of all, I would like to go back over that. You read much faster than I could.
Okay. Stacy, do you want to read it back? Or do you want just the numbers, Tim?
I think he
No,
just
the committee and the numbers.
the numbers. Highway committee 600,000.
Okay.
Right.
And after that, then so
Property committee 325,000. PTED 250,000, and extension 2,500. The remaining to go to the general fund.
And if I could get a second, I'd speak to that.
Is there a second for that motion? Well, first of all, I hope everyone understands. I'm going to read it again. So this would, George, I didn't have time to add this up. What is the remaining that would go to the general fund?
It comes up to $1,177,000, $177,500. So
That leaves 60,458.
60,458. John just said 60,458 left over for the general fund.
John, could you repeat that, please?
Am I having trouble communicating?
Yeah, that would leave $60,458 if George scratches are right.
I didn't write it down fast enough. You did it.
Highway 600,000.
Okay.
Property 325,000. PTED 250,000, and extension 2,500. It comes to 1,177,500. Are you seconding it?
No, I got a question to ask.
Well, we don't have, we need a second,
second.
and we still haven't, we really shouldn't even go any further until we actually know, we're all in agreement about that number.
Well, we need a second to discuss it at all.
All right, we need a second to discuss it at all. Thank you, Paul.
I'll second it.
All right, second from John Schultz.
In the language of the whereases, I was reiterating or repeating some of Mr. Zeglin's issues, which have to do with using the money. First of all, using the money to benefit the county, to be good stewards of the money, and to I added obviously the phrase related to the spirit of the state statutes related to conservation, preservation, reclamation. In terms of the specific items, obviously it's clear that the tablets for the county board have been eliminated. I personally felt that. Thank you. Good presentation, Paul. But at this point, this was something that probably wasn't really necessary, especially for this money. And related to the request from property and the generators, this is something that's been needed for many years. In the conversations in exec finance, we have said that basically it can wait another year. I'm thinking this would be a down payment to that, and that the county board, hopefully within the next year or two, would find the money that would be necessary to fill that need for the replacement of the generators. In terms of the highway bridge requests, that's related in the language about county's infrastructure. And yes, we need bridges. And the state has just made it more difficult for us to build bridges by changing the formula on how they fund bridges. And yet, we could take all this money, build the bridges that this money would cover, and we'd still have bridges that would need building, and we would still have roads that would need replacing. So until a long-term solution, whether the candidates for governor come through with their promises for better funding, it'll be more than a drop in the barrel, but it won't be a permanent fix. So, and as far as the drone requests, there's lots of options for that can be used in the Environment and Land Use Committee, as well as Extension and the TV studio. And if they only have half of it, there's nothing they can do with the money, so you might as well give them $2,500. And that's my rationale for that, for amending it to that.
Okay. Thank you, George. Sally? I should say Supervisor Miller. I'm trying to be more...
I know, that's fine. If we have to borrow money for highway or for property, what would the interest rate be that we would be paying on what we would have to borrow? What's the current interest rate?
I think it's 4% from
the state trust fund that we used the last 2 years. It's gone up. It's up about 4%.
Okay.
Supervisor Fry. I was waiting.
Okay. We've had 6 days of budget finance hearings, and we are currently, at this time, over $3 million that we are going to have to borrow to balance the budget. George mentioned infrastructure in the state statute. Highways are the infrastructure. Highways alone needs to borrow $2.5 million, and don't hold me 100% of these figures, but it's in that general range. $2.5 million this year alone, just for highways. Next year, if I'm not mistaken, we're looking at close to $9 million plus for bridges. I don't know anybody that would want to borrow money in the full amount of what we're short when we have $1.2 million to put into that budget right now, so that we are only borrowing a little over $2 million. And I say a little over, and these numbers they're amazing, they're astounding. On a $70 million budget, that's what we're looking at. It's not going to be a fun time next month. We haven't had fun on the exec finance except when John cracks jokes. Other than that, it's been a very serious.
That ran through the whole 6 days too.
Yeah. But it's one of those situations where myself personally, I'm voting no on all of this. That money should be put back into should be put into the general fund so that we can use that and still take approximately $600,000 out of the general fund to get our borrowing down, short-term borrowing down to $2 million or a little bit over. We don't need to be borrowing $3 million plus when we've got $1.2 million available to us right now. It makes no financial sense to me whatsoever. So I'm voting no on everything.
And again, you brought up the topic of the vote. It would take a simple majority to amend, correct? Correct. But it would take 2/3 to pass whatever results from all the amendments. Sally Miller, Mrs. Supervisor Miller.
I guess at this point, I'm going to put it out there that I am of the belief that basically, if your roof is leaking at home and you inherit money from Aunt Tilly when she dies, you don't go out and buy a convertible and go to Vegas. You apply it to the most practical thing. I am not in support of a revolving loan. Those things are too hard to enforce. I don't know who's going to be the one that manages this, who's going to control this, but I've over the years, as a reporter, as a business owner, somebody who sat on economic development boards, this is money that sometimes is hard to reclaim. Grant money, I'm not in favor of giving away money at this point when we are looking at having to borrow money for the necessary things at a 4% interest. There's a lot of really cool stuff we could do with the money, but the bottom line is anything we can do to reduce the amount of money that we are spending, we, I think, need to do. And these are more than a few pennies from heaven, but I think it does behoove us to really look at how we can reduce how much we have to borrow and how we can meet the obligations that we have. And certainly we have some serious ones. Highways, anybody who's ridden these highways know, and as somebody who's been riding the back roads of the highways on the back of a motorcycle for the past 3 months, I can tell you we have some beautiful scenery, beautiful roads. We have some roads that are in rough shape. And I definitely would like us to do what we can to improve safety and improve the what we have to improve, whether it's roads or within the building or whatever. But all the rest of the wish list, I feel, is probably not going to be money well spent when we are having to borrow money to meet our basic needs.
Thank you, Supervisor Miller. Now, these questions, or this discussion has to do with the amendment, Supervisor Brandt's amendment. Again, let me make that real clear. So we were discussing the amendment.
Mr. Chair, may I
Remember,
respond?
3 times, George.
It's only my first
This will be
time.
2. This will be 2.
I got one more. I don't want to burn them all. See, now I've forgotten what I was going to say.
That counted?
No, that doesn't count.
Yeah, restart.
No. I guess the reference to pennies from heaven. We will have this issue next year. This is a one-time thing. We can't count on 1.237 million coming next year as well. And it is an unfortunate reality that we are constrained in many ways from raising the money that are necessary for the things that we need. The $625,000 that are or $650,000 that are requested for the generators. Our maintenance supervisor gave a wonderful, well, you heard it here, presentation related to the importance of that, especially in as it relates to emergencies in the county. It's something we need. I'd also like to clarify when I had mentioned the money going towards PTED that my intention was to combine the two halves to come as close to the $300,000 that was requested for a revolving loan fund. I might, and I know, Sally, you have mentioned this before in terms of revolving loan fund and your experiences, but I was heartened to read in the most recent electric co-op news of an electric co-op in our state that oversees revolving loan fund and has helped to facilitate a number of improvements and growth of businesses within their community. It's something that's a very positive thing to do. That's my response. I have there are good reasons to take this money and put it towards the things requested. It would seem disingenuous on the part of the board if we had asked every department to come up with something to do with the money, and then say, well, no, we're just going to put it in the general fund. I want you to consider that as well. So thank you very much for your consideration.
Supervisor Femright, first time.
I've got a question for George.
Sure.
How's your memory now?
Yeah. Okay, I'm there.
The parks, tourism, and economic development, how much money did you put in on that?
I believe it was $250,000, yeah.
See, I have some real questions about that. You talk about economic development. People are, well, you see in the paper every week, Trumpealeau County Times, at least 2 pages of help on it. Sometimes there's 3. And you hear about Ashley Industries having to rent a bus to come out of Eau Claire to bring workers down here in Trempealeau County. I was told by somebody they're currently doing that now because they're so desperate for workers. And our unemployment is like 2.8% or something like that. And it just seems like it doesn't pay to have economic development promotion when you don't have enough workers to fill the jobs that are available here now. I think I disagree with that whole $300,000 going into that department. I kind of like this idea of getting it back into the budget. That's legal, get it into the budget and then take care of some of what I think is most important is the roads and also that generator. It sounds like that generator could go down. It's an electric generator. It has something to do with air conditioning and heating. If that goes down, and that's $600,000, I think he reported on that.
650, yeah.
650?
Yeah. 650.
I think that's really important, but I think all the money should go into the general fund and let the executive committee decide where the important things are.
Thank you, Supervisor Femright. Remember, we are still talking about, or we're still discussing the amendment, Mr. Brandt's amendment. Are there any other questions or discussion? Before we vote, George, I do want to clarify something. The wording, remember I didn't see this until 10 minutes ago. The wording of your amendment awards $600,000 to the Highway Committee, so and so forth. So you're awarding the money to a committee and not to a project?
Well, what I was trying to do was to copy your language to the extent possible.
But it's, my language says to be used for the purchase of.
Well, actually...
or to be used for some function.
Nah, not really. It says PTED committee proposal of 200,000, the quantity when multiplied by point.
No, but the first one, George, says
up
above.
That's all still in there. I mean, all we're doing is eliminating the language after the whereas that combines some. So, yeah. So everything is in there.
So the destination is, the ultimate destination is a certain project and not a.
The only clarification I would offer, and I'm hoping this isn't one of mine.
No, it isn't.
Okay. The only clarification I would offer is that $250,000 would be for the revolving loan.
Tourism grant he's dropping.
Well, then you're amending your amendment, George. But I
would be
imagine
clarifying.
everyone. Well, then, is there any, first, we're going to have to go over that before we vote. But are there any other discussion on this? All right. So George, I don't hear any questions, so I just want to repeat so we all understand what you're saying. Highway committee for bridge construction gets $600,000.
Right.
Property committee for the purpose of the standby generator gets $325,000.
Correct.
PTED committee, now you fill in the blanks, because I don't.
PTED committee for the revolving loan fund, $250,000.
Okay, only for the revolving loan fund, the tourism grant drops out. Extension, $2,500 for the drone, and I myself didn't add these up, but reliable sources tell me that there's $60,458 left that would go into the general fund. So that is Mr. Grant's amendment.
That's mine.
Any other questions or discussions? Chuck.
Yes, my question, and I don't know if anybody here can answer it. Now, they're giving us this money. Is there going to be some anticipated expense because of these power lines coming through our county, that we should have some money in case? They're giving us.
We haven't heard a word of that, Chuck.
What's that?
Supervisor Miller.
Well, my understanding was that the letter originally came from the highway department and saying that because of the impact of the building of the line, that this money was being offered to offset the expense of the construction. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay, so initially it did come to the highway department as an offer to offset the expenses that would be incurred to repair damages.
Basically because they were using the roads during bans.
Right. During bans, so they were using them during the road bans. Oh. Yeah. Okay.
Well, they're still working on the project.
So that's what I'm getting at. Are there some expenses that are going to come because of these lines that we should have some money to offset those problems that may arise from the construction of these lines? Do we want to spend it all and then have to borrow money to fix up what something has gone wrong because of the line? And I don't know. I'm asking.
Well, it's an open-ended question, Chuck. Supervisor Osden, our highway committee.
Our highway commissioner is here. He could answer some of these questions.
Okay. Al, can you answer Chuck's question?
Yeah, so to answer that specific question.
You want to get up front?
Loud voice. So to answer your specific question about potential annual costs incurred due to the power lines coming through, there was that annual payment to those townships that the power lines are running through to offset unforeseen future costs of those power lines. So yes, that annual payment, it was that $11 for one township, and it was.
Right. But some of them were substantial, though.
Right, because it was all based on the lineal footage through each township, a calculation that they used. So.
You know, Al, as long as we got you up there, why some towns receive, if that's the basis for the allocation to offset potential damage to highways, why did some entities get a one-time payment? Well, actually, all the smaller government units got a one-time payment plus an annual payment. Only the county got a one-time payment only. You know what?
I don't know why the county got a one-time payment. I just know that the townships got annual payments because power line is going to be there forever, running through their township, and it's just they had to put some sort of number to it, and it's just some formula they came up with.
Right. I'm sure some well-paid person worked out these formulas, but okay, thanks, Al.
Yep.
Any other questions?
I can answer that question if it doesn't count towards mine.
Answer which question?
The question about how they came up with the numbers. It's in the statutes. It's a requirement of the statutes.
It does not count. You still got one shot left.
Thank you.
On your amendment.
Right, on your amendment, right. Any other discussion on or questions about Supervisor Brandt's amendment? I think, whoops, Doc just took a drink of water. All right. I'm watching, I'm really watching like a hawk here. All right, the amendment would only take a 50% vote to, or 51%. What would be, let's see, what would be, to pass it, we would need.
1 over half, so 8.
It would take 8.
7.5 wants to be half.
All right.
I'll be half.
You take eight yes votes to pass the amendment. This is voting on the amendment. Voting on just the amendment.
You want to clarify that, because we're all kind of wondering
Clarify what?
the amendment.
All right, the amendment. This is George's amendment, and the amendment would allocate $600,000 to the Highway Committee, $325,000 to the Property Committee, $250,000 to the PTED Committee for a revolving loan fund, $2,500 to Extension for the drone, and would result in about $60,458 left that would go to the general fund. Roughly half, it eliminates anything going for computer tablets, and eliminates the county tourism grant, and gives all the other proposals about half. Very good. Very general overview. Got it? Okay. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Supervisor Myers.
That loan for 200-some thousand, are we in the banking business?
Well, that's a rhetorical question, but
Yeah, are we in the banking business?
okay, I think we'll take that as a criticism.
If we're loaning out money, we must have to get it back. Are we going to charge interest rates?
Great, that's Supervisor Winter's comment. Is this two for Supervisor Femright? Mr. Femright has his hand.
He's only, this will be number 2.
This will be number 2. Hold it.
I have a question. It's my understanding, and maybe I'm wrong, the county also pays for culverts and bridges for the townships, half of that. And the township and bridge, am I right in remembering that?
It would take some clarification. You're not quite right. You've got a general idea.
Bridges are 50%.
Is it
on town bridges?
Should Al, would you want to come up here and explain that?
I say just stay up here.
Well, you could probably take a chair closer.
I'm gonna keep this here all night and walking back and forth. Co-aid bridges is 50%. So you are correct on that. And the co-aid roads, that is the 60-40, where the townships pay the 60%, we pay the 40%.
But doesn't each township have to request that?
They have to request it, they petition
It's
for
not
it.
automatic. It's not.
Yeah. And it has to be performed by our forces, so it gives them incentive to hire us to do the work. So, we help them out, but we get the money back at the same time.
Supervisor Miller.
It's just a thought occurred to me. Are there projects? I know that there's been money out there typically, or over the years, money's been out there for, like, suddenly you'll find out that there's money available for matching grants or something like that. Have you looked to see if some of the stuff is out there that if you were to get a chunk of money, you could go and maybe double its value by finding a grant? Is this something that's out there?
There are grants available. They're tough to get. They're tough to find at the county level. I haven't pursued any yet in my short term here so far, but yeah, it is possible, but and just speaking with all my other commissioners around the state, it's very uncommon to get grants for infrastructure.
Any other questions? And we're still discussing the amendment, George's amendment. Thank you, Will. John, is your hand up, or?
No, I was just going to call for the question.
Okay. All right, yes, I was moving that way. So let's vote. It'll take, I forgot the number. 8 to pass the amendment.
We're ready?
We're ready, let's vote.
Oh, boy, are we ready?
Who said that?
I did.
Well, Ron Johnson's first.
Yes.
Richard Fry.
No.
Doug Winters.
No.
Sally Miller.
No.
Richard Seisha.
No.
John Schultz.
Yes.
George Brandt.
Yes.
Beth Killian.
Yes.
Randy Tollefson.
No.
Michelle Haynes.
Yes.
John Austin.
No.
Chuck Wallach.
Yes.
Tim Zeglin.
No.
Olin Femright.
No.
And Kurt Skoyan.
No.
6-9. Fails.
All right, 9-6, the amendment fails. We're back to the.
I don't take it personally.
Take what person?
We're back to the original resolution.
That's not amended.
Not amended. The original resolution as written, as presented.
As presented.
Is there any discussion or questions about the original resolution? I'm waiting, Dick.
Okay, with the original resolution, if we don't amend the resolution, then all of these projects would be approved at the 0.85 as originally written. In that case, I would like to amend this resolution to eliminate all of the requests and that we just return the money to the general fund. Not return it, put it in the general fund.
All right, so the motion is to eliminate all of the proposals and put all the money in the general fund. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
The second from Supervisor Austin. Floor is open for discussion on that amendment.
Put all in general fund.
Supervisor Miller.
Are the conditions of us getting this money, do they allow for us to do this?
Can I talk? Well, you can. I can.
We're all so eager to answer.
No matter how we allocate it, if we're not using it for an environmental impact purpose, we have to get special permission from the state to use it for anything other than that environmental use. So it's supposed to go like to land and water or conservation, that kind of thing. But if we want to allocate it to something else, we got to get permission from the state to use it. And that's what we're doing now. We're kind of using it for something else, not what the statutes. I should have brought the statutes with me.
Right. And I'll add something to it because I did research this. I don't think that I forgot the agency that approves these. They have approved all sorts of other projects, pole shed, sheds, highway construction, virtually anything and everything. The only restriction they have ever placed is that on loaning the money, or is actually using the money to fund another party. So the money they won't give permission for us to give the money to the Elks Club or to the Kiwanis Club or something like that. That's the information I have about it. So yes, we do have to ask for permission, but the agency has really never turned anybody down for anything reasonable.
So then going back to the letter that came with this notification, does anybody recall whether it indicated that highways would be an appropriate use for it?
That was the first place they came to, was the highway department, both times. Not only this time, but the last times came. But they came to the highway department and and told us that's what they'd like to give the highway
They
department.
told you or wrote a letter?
No, they come right out and told us. They were at our committee meeting.
So we know that if the money.
ATC came to.
Supervisor Schultz, please.
Yeah, they came right to our meeting. Let's see. Yep, they were all here.
Okay.
You were at the meeting, weren't you? They were all, they came right out to the meeting and said that, you know, they would like to get that would be the funds that we could get for the basically we could use it for the highway.
Okay, so we could safely assume that it would be an approved use if they came to us and told us it would be an approved use.
The highway funding. Are you talking about the highway
Yeah.
funding? I think that would be a safe assumption, but that's my opinion.
Okay.
You're back to number one. Yes, George.
Yes, I'm starting the clock again. First of all, I would suggest that ATC was being disingenuous when it and was looking for support from the highway committee when it came to them, especially since the states, they know that the state statutes do not require the counties to use it for highways. Certainly we could use it for highways. And I would refer you back to Al's comments that the highway money, the annual payments that come to other municipalities, townships, villages, cities, are more likely related to the effects of that might be on the town roads or the village roads. And also, I'm going to repeat what I had said earlier. It would appear disingenuous for us to go through this process since May in requesting projects that from each department, in fact, and we had 4, 5, 6 departments, and then just not give any of it to anybody. Obviously, it's needed to help balance the budget, but again, there will be that difference next year, if not a greater one. So, and this money won't be available. So, that's just to repeat something I had said during the discussion about the amendment, previous amendment.
All right, well, discussion now again pertains to Mr. Fry's amendment, proposed amendment, to eliminate all the committee proposals and put the money in the general fund. Yes, Mr. Fry.
George, as far as being disingenuous to all the departments, I don't feel we are being disingenuous due to the fact that all of us are taxpayers. And we have to be able to get the money someplace to balance the budget. You sit on the exec finance, you know what it's been like, and it hasn't been fun. It's not going to be fun next year. It's not going to be fun the year after. We're not getting enough money from the state. We all agree with that. A lot of unfunded state and federal mandates. That's something that we have to deal with. When you have an amount of money available, even if we just said, okay, fine, let's give it all to the highway for the $1.237,959,000 for the bridges, excellent. That's going to help us to balance that budget, even if we just do the bridges alone. Because then we can move the money from other projects the highway wants to do, and we can get the bridges and the other highways taken care of at the same time. But borrowing money to loan out money doesn't make good sense. So it's got to go, if the board decides, okay, let's do it all for the highway committee proposal of the $1,237,959, great, that's fine. It's going to help balance that budget. We're not going to have to borrow over $3 million. That's a lot of money to borrow at 4% interest. And then we can't pay it back right away. Last year we got nailed with that extra $37,000 in interest because we couldn't pay it back right away. These are the consequences of borrowing money. So that's why I'm making the amendment that it all go to the general fund and we can take care of the highway that way.
Thank you, Mr. Fry.
Mr. Chair.
This will be number 2. Yeah, number 2 on this amendment.
I think we should get some technology where this appears on the wall behind you.
Sure, we'll borrow for that too.
Well, let's do that. I think we can. Let's bond for that one. Okay.
That was your talk?
No, that was not my talk. I want to try to unpack some of what Supervisor Fry was saying, there was certainly, I agree that we agree, and I'm finding myself agreeing with him more often than I care to, but we do agree that this funding issue for local government is going to continue to be difficult for a very long time, as it has been for a very long time. That much I agree with. And I will stand by my my statement about being the process being disingenuous. If we, understandably, we are the ones who are making the decision. That's always been our responsibility, and the option of doing nothing, funding none of them, has always been an option. But still, it was a process that many department heads put quite a bit of thought into, and the presentations were also quite thoughtfully done. In terms of and the third point here, or the third unpacking that I'm hoping to get to, is that yes, it's true. Some of the money that we want to borrow for short term is for road projects. If we take all of this money, and somebody said, let the Exec Finance Committee figure out what to do with it. If we decide we're going to take all of that money, this 1.237 million, and put it towards highways so that we don't have to borrow that, yes, we'll be borrowing considerably less money. But we could also say no to the highway department. I guess what I'm saying is, unless you specifically verbalize that this money is going into the general fund so we can give it back to the highway department, or give it to the highway department, in other words, to fund their request, I think you should sort of eliminate the discussion about the highway department. Otherwise, your amendment would be, let's just give it all to the highway department as per their request. So do you understand what I'm saying?
No. What your amendment.
Right. I know that is not what his amendment is, but in his description of his rationale, Mr. Fry is suggesting that the Exec Finance Committee will possibly give it all to the highway department, thereby lowering our request for short-term borrowing, even though we still have to come up with some money to balance the budget, even with the short-term borrowing.
And I would want to clarify this, because the undercurrent has been, you're actually proposing another amendment. Actually, Dick, no, you're not. Dick sort of did himself.
Yes.
So Dick said, first of all, put it all in the revolving loan fund, or rather, excuse me, put it all in the general fund, and then that would allow the county or the Exec Finance Committee to recommend a budget which would put all of it into the highway fund. I mean, the more direct way of doing that would be to either, if that's what you want to do, to withdraw your first amendment and make an amendment that all the money would go to the. Because right now we're still talking about, you sort of introduced the second possibility, which is confusing.
I understand. I did. But at this point in time, I'd just like to see the money go back into the general fund, because as of right now, we're $682,363.51 short to even come close.
In levy.
In levy. And by putting it back into the general fund, we can cover that $683,000 right there, and then we can decide on the remainder of the money going to the different projects that are out there that have. We shorted a lot of committees. It's reality. We don't have the money. This $1.2 million is going to help us out tremendously.
Right. So
my hair won't get any grayer. Okay.
Mr. Fry's comments are to his amendment, and they were to his amendment, and I believe that was your second comment.
Yeah.
Mr. Schultz.
Yeah, I thanks, Paul, for reminding us kind of the statutory intent of fund, being towards environmental impact. And obviously, a number of towns and counties have taken great latitude, adjusting budgetary needs, which is what we're talking about. Back to the revolving loan fund idea, a number of counties in Wisconsin administer revolving loan funds. It's not rocket science. It's being done successfully. We took the advantage of putting forth a proposal as suggested by our county board, and we did so. I was proud of our proposal. I'd like to see our county find a way to invest in itself instead of this. I mean, what we're seeing, unfunded mandates, we're like any other small county. Our towns, villages, we're being beat down. This is a point of, frankly, so I'm concerned politically, this is a point of desperation we're being pushed into. Our small local governments are supposed to be desperate and having these conversations. And we all have to share that stress. I fundamentally in spirit agree with the intent and purpose of all of these ideas. They have value to the county. With where we're at currently with our stress level, I agree with Dick Fry's amendment. I think this is what we need to do, what's appropriate. We have a fiduciary responsibility, first and foremost. That's our job, not our favored projects, not our wish list items. So for that reason, and maybe things will change in a month. I think for the purposes of this meeting, I'll be supporting Dick Fry's amendment. So I'll keep it short because I'm going to go long.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Before we go any further, Rick Niemeyer has looked up the statute. So if you're still uncertain about the justification for any possible use, we have statutory. Rick's going to read us the statutory language that governs that.
I'll do kind of abbreviated version, but it says that the distribution can be used for park, conservancy, wetland, or other similar environmental programs unless the commission approves a different use. It does say that you can request permission for different use. They have 14 days to respond to the request. It says the commission shall approve a request if it finds that the request is in the public interest. So the burden of meeting a permission for a different request seems to be pretty low.
And can you explain the significance of the word shall?
Correct, yes. Basically, if you present anything that's going to be benefit to the public, they are required to give you approval for the change. That's how I would interpret it to be.
Thank you, Rick. Supervisor Fenrick.
Well, I'm certainly in favor of the road money because I looked up the number of roads here in Trempealeau County. There's 292 miles of roads in Trempealeau County, 292. In the towns, there's 775 miles of roads, and we're helping all these roads in the towns as well. So I think it's important to have money available for. It's a very, very necessary thing to keep our roads in order. I would, however, wouldn't mind seeing a kind of an amendment saying that in case the electric, what was that again? That was about ready to go out. The generator. That seems like it's about ready to go out, and that's going to affect the heating. It's going to affect the cooling. So it seems like the roads and the generator, in my mind, are the two main things we should put the money toward. And maybe we should just authorize the executive board to make the decisions on those two items in this request.
Oh, and that might be an amendment you could propose after we vote on this amendment, right? Right now, we're speaking to the amendment to put all the money in the general fund. Supervisor Brandt. Paul reminds me this is your third shot.
Yes, I know. I'm getting a theme going on here, and so I'll probably be voting for this as well. But for this reason, John has convinced me of the need for support of this. But also there will be opportunities for more discussion related to how this budget plays out. Tomorrow morning, we'll be dealing with the effects of this vote at the Executive Finance Committee as we come to hopefully some sort of agreement to balance the budget and get it printed so that you all can, or we all can, knock this all around again in a month. So basically, it just seems like the field of battle is shifting a little bit. So Yeah, thanks, Olin, for pointing that out as well, that the Executive Finance Committee can, in fact, recommend at budget time that some money be put towards these things. So thanks.
Supervisor Killian.
I have two thoughts come to my mind. One that has been mentioned before, that we had asked the other departments, committees to come up with these proposals, and then we're just saying we're not going to listen to you or do anything. That bothers me a little bit. But the other thing is the whole road issue. I know I've been dealing with it for over 5 years, and it's not something that's going to go away, and it's not going to be getting any better. So, you know, I guess I agree a lot of money has to be going toward roads. And I have faith in the Executive Finance Committee to figure out where the money is going to go if we do pass this amendment.
Thank you, Supervisor Killian. Mr. Schultz, are you moving towards a comment?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
I don't think we're shortchanging the proposals they came forward. I mean, they had their opportunity. I think they all had their merits, and you know, the initial resolution, you know, with the multiplier was, I think, honoring them all fairly. George, I liked your amendment idea.
It was a blend.
Well, and clean up a few of the concepts. So I think we've gone through the process fairly. I don't think anyone should feel slighted by their efforts not being honored, or just because you put a proposal forward doesn't mean you get anything. That's just the way it works. We've done our jobs. John wants to vote.
Right. Oh, I agree with you.
John wants to vote real bad.
Well, we'll let Mr. Austin can speak his mind when he wants to. So we are still, the discussion is still directed towards Mr. Fry's amendment. Is there any other questions or discussion on that amendment? The amendment would put all the money in the general fund, and of course that would be contingent on approval by the Department of Administration, but we're pretty sure that we would get the approval from the Department of Administration. Any other discussion on Mr. Fry's amendment? Okay, simple majority to pass the amendment. Let's vote.
Ready?
Yeah.
George Brandt.
What?
Did I see a tear?
I can't help it. These are all shuffled up, so I just take the top one.
Oh, all right. Let's honor the process. Thank you again, John, for clarifying. Yes.
Beth Killian.
Yes.
Randy Tollefson.
Yes.
Michelle Haynes.
Yes.
John Austin.
Yeah.
Chuck Wallach.
Yes.
Tim Zeglin.
Yes.
Olin Femright. Kurt Skoyan.
Yes.
Ron Johnson.
Yes.
Richard Fry.
Yes.
Douglas Winters.
Yes.
Sally Miller.
Yes.
Richard Seisha.
Yes.
John Schultz.
Yes.
That was a 15-0.
All right, the amendment passes 15-0. Now we move back to the resolution has been reduced to allocate all the money to the general fund. And that, if there's going to be any more discussion, it would be to the now amended resolution. Is there any more discussion? Mr. Supervisor Miller.
I feel like I want to know that this money is going to go to highways. So I don't know if I need to make an amendment or
Just trust me making a
well, and I do, but I know that
It's your decision.
right. So I'm going to make an amendment to read to allocate the money in its entirety to the highway department.
All right, we have a motion to allocate all the money to the highway department. Does that motion have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Supervisor Austin. We've talked about this a lot, but is there any further discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Back to one, George.
I believe this motion disregards a significant amount of the discussion that went down in the previous amendment. And that is to say, the feeling that each of these options had merit, not just one. That the Executive Finance Committee would take a long look at this and use the funds wisely. Paul, what was that $600,000 figure that we're still short on the levy limit?
Actually, no. It's down to $652.
$652,000, which this amendment would take.
That's on the levy.
That's on the levy, exactly.
Not borrowing.
Right, exactly. So that would take the possibility of using these funds to balance our budget within the levy limits away from the Executive Finance Committee. It certainly would be possible to move this money around at the public hearing in November. So I would vote against this amendment because it, in a sense, disregards the spirit of the previous amendment.
Sally was first.
And my reason is, and I totally respect the fact that we can have these really good discussions, really respectful discussions. My reason for making this amendment is rooted in the fact that I would want to guarantee that they will allow us, and so if we can show that it is going to go to the highways, and that's originally where the letter came, I feel like we aren't running a chance that they are going to somehow disallow what it is that we want to do. And the other thing is, by allocating it in its entirety to the highway department, it does reduce the amount of money that we're going to have to do on borrowing to cover highways, which then reduces how much interest we're going to be paying on that borrowing. So that's my reason for doing it. It has nothing to do with not respecting the conversations that happened. I really, truly do respect it. These are just this is kind of how it shook out, and I couldn't go on without at least bringing these things forward and at least trying to put it, because I really believe that we need to put as much as we can into highways, but I also know, having served on exec finance for years, that borrowing is something we always have to go to cover highways, and we're paying interest on it, and if we can reduce the amount that we pay on interest and not have to borrow that much to cover what we have to do on highways, I think it's a fiscally responsible decision. And I made the amendment because I just felt like there were a lot of things that needed to be covered, and I felt better doing that.
Supervisor, John, I see you. Could you clarify your amendment? Does your amendment propose all the money goes to the highway committee, or all the money goes to bridge construction, or?
So it goes to their request, to the highway.
Your statement was all to highway.
Right.
So that would be all the money at the discretion of the highway committee. That's what you said.
For the bridges. I guess, yeah, it was for the highways. It was for them to use as they need to reduce the borrowing. Yeah, so it would be to the highway department. It wouldn't be.
To be used at their discretion.
Yeah.
Supervisor Austin.
Well, basically, she made the same comments that I wanted to make, so that pretty well covers what I was going to say.
Okay. Any other comments? So the amendment is to put all the money to allocate all the money to the highway department to be used at the highway department's discretion. Correct, Sally?
It's needed, yes, to reduce borrowing.
To reduce borrowing.
Right.
Wait a minute.
Well, whatever they're bringing forward that that you're going to have to borrow for. So.
It's a little. I think there's a problem in your.
It could be. That's why I just went with in its entirety to the highway department. Yeah.
I think
I will stick with
you're
my original.
okay. Well, that's what we're going to have to talk about, because you'd have to
original.
amend that again, because you aren't saying, you didn't say to reduce borrowing in your.
Oh no, I would just clarify, but yeah, to the highway department.
All right, Supervisor Winters.
No.
Wait, we didn't vote yet. I thought you had a comment.
Oh yeah. Oh,
He's ready to vote.
I'm going both slower. It should go for bridges. I don't say for roads. We got 9 bridges that we got to take care of.
The amendment, Supervisor Miller's amendment, allocates the money to the highway department to be used as the highway department sees fit. Any other discussion? Let's vote.
We need a second.
I think we had a second.
John Austin.
Oh, he did, John.
Yeah.
You know what you're voting on, everybody?
Should I repeat that?
Give it all the highways.
I would ask for clarification. Mr. Zigman, you suggested by adding the phrase, "as the highway department sees fit," that it could be things that we haven't even discussed, whether it was roads or bridges or new trucks or whatever.
Right, because as I heard the original amendment, it was simply to allocate the money to the highway department.
And Supervisor Miller,
there was no further direction after that.
You agree that your amendment is as the highway sees fit, highway committee sees fit, or highway department sees fit?
What does change it?
I would suggest you put it in for the bridges.
Yeah, when you put it that way, it does change it. So, do I amend my amendment?
I believe you can.
Rick, can I amend my amendment? I will amend my amendment to...
We haven't voted on it yet, so is that okay?
Well, Doug voted on it.
And I voted all right.
Well, Doug's gonna...
It's gotta be
But it was a vote.
Gotta be bridge.
So I will amend my amendment to specify that we give the money in its entirety to the highway department to fund the bridge repairs as noted in their proposal.
Okay, for the bridge construction project.
Yes.
Is there a second
I'll
for that?
second that.
We have a second from Supervisor Osson. Okay, any more discussion or questions? Supervisor Brandt.
Question for Rick. Does this, in as much as this seems to be a friendly amendment, is there 2 votes required to this, or should we just vote on this one?
Since there was an amendment to the amendment, you should vote on the amendment to the amendment and then vote on that
Amended amendment, okay.
You're welcome. That isn't my fire.
So we would... Well, no, we'll have to vote on the amendment to the amendment and then vote on the amendment, and then we're still back to voting on the resolution as amended. Okay, does everybody understand what's going on here? Okay. So we are voting, the amendment to the amendment allocates all the money to the highway department for bridge construction, as originally outlined in, okay, I'm adding George, but Sally, is this great? As originally proposed by the highway commissioner.
Yes. Correct.
Everybody ready to vote? All right, Paul.
This is just adding for bridge construction is what it is. Chuck Wallach.
Yes.
Tim Zeglin.
Yes.
Olin Right?
Yes.
Kurt Skorian?
Yes.
Ron Johnson?
Yes.
Richard Fry?
Yes.
Douglas Winters?
I suppose, yes.
Sally Miller?
Yes.
Richard Seisha?
Yes.
John Schultz?
Yes.
George Brandt?
No.
No. Beth Killian?
No. I was going to
Randy
be
Tollefson?
Yes.
Michelle Haynes?
No.
John Austin?
Yes.
12-3.
Yeah, there were some no votes, but the motion passes. The amendment passes. Now we'll vote on the amendment, the first proposed amendment by Supervisor.
What's that, remind us?
Allocate all to highway department for bridge construction.
Okay, and is everybody clear on that? That's what we're voting on? All right, I'll call for the vote.
Kurt Skorian?
Yes.
Ron Johnson?
Yes.
Richard Fry?
Yes.
Douglas Winters?
Yes.
Sally Miller?
Yes.
Richard Seisha?
No.
John Schultz?
Yes.
George Brandt?
No.
Beth Killian?
No.
Randy Tollefson?
Yes.
Michelle Haynes?
No.
John Austin?
Yes.
Chuck Wallach?
No.
Tim Zeglin?
Yes.
All in favor, right?
Yes.
That's it.
And that's pretty close.
10 to 5. So it passes.
10 to 5, the amendment passes. Okay. Now we're back to the original resolution. Now the resolution has been amended it's been reduced, tell me if I'm wrong here, but the resolution has been reduced to allocating all the money to the highway department for the purpose of bridge construction. So that's what we're voting on right now, and this will take 2/3.
And 2/3, you've got that multiplied out, so it's 12? I think it is.
Well, we may, let's make sure. Right.
Isn't it of the body, or is it present?
No. Well, we gotta check parliamentary procedure here.
2/3 without the president.
Well, wait, John. This is our official lawyer here. Okay. John will tell jokes while we're waiting. No, you better not, John.
They're those kind of jokes. Norwegian jokes.
Yeah, you watch it.
You just might be checking.
Do we have a score? Who's the Brewers winning?
As George Brandt just commented, a former county board supervisor who literally right now be watching the game on his phone. I recalled that, so I checked the score. It's 2-0 Brewers in the bottom of the sixth.
What was it?
21-20. 2-0 Brewers in the bottom of the sixth.
For the Brewers. And we're the Packers?
21-20, they're down.
Yeah, they are.
I keep getting updates from
They're too much money.
For San Francisco.
Yeah. That's not good. They can hardly field a team. That whole team is fighting amongst each other. Coach and quarterback.
He inherited a really good program.
Picked up a defensive coordinator. Obviously, it's worse than I should have.
If we're wrong, we're creating a terrible mistake.
Just pull up on your phone.
And it could be that close. So if it's 2/3 of members present, that would be 10 to pass. And if it's 2/3 of the whole body, it would take 11 to pass.
That's what Rick is.
It could be close.
That's what Rick is looking up because.
What are you doing? Should I keep looking over on our bushes right now? No, right now.
You never know.
24-20.
Now wait.
Yeah, that's right.
All that is really make it even Michelle. Yeah, we're not going to.
The good news is, with the Brewers and Packers, it's on
property committee. And what happened is we joined with the
Good point.
We could tell John.
Do you want to do something?
This way we can.
All right, everyone. Here's the way the situation stands now. This is a lot of money.
This
is a lot of money. George, will you let me finish, please? This is a lot of money. The vote is very important, and actually, Rick is going to go check his statute books. If we need 2/3 of the members present, which is 15, 10 votes, it'll take 10 votes to pass. But if the ruling is 2/3 of the whole body, the 17, it'll take 12 votes to pass. So this is really, it's critical that we establish this and not make a mistake at this point. So we're going to adjourn temporarily, or recess until 9 o'clock, give Rick time to look this up. You can talk about the game if you want. All right, everyone. We're going to take roll calls. Make sure everybody's here. Before we go any further. Richard Fry. Here.
Douglas Winters.
Here.
Sally Miller.
Here.
Richard Sasha.
Here.
John Schultz.
Here.
George Brandt.
Here.
Beth Killian.
Here.
Randy Tollefson.
Here.
Michelle Haynes.
Here.
John Austin.
Here.
Chuck Wallach.
Here.
Tim Zeglin.
Here.
Olin Femright.
Here.
Michael Nelson. Gene Nutter. Kurt Skoyen.
Here.
Ron Johnson.
Here.
15.
All right, we have 15 members present. And we are going to be voting on the resolution as amended. The amendment has passed. So the resolution as it now stands allocates all the money to the Highway Department for bridge construction. And Rick has looked up it's not a statute, it's parliamentary procedure, has looked up parliamentary procedure as it pertains to this question. We need 2/3 of the people seated here. So we need 10 votes to pass. 10 yes votes will pass this. We'll give all the money to the Highway Department for bridge construction. And anything less than 10 votes will, what will happen?
Goes back to the original.
We'll be back to day one.
Go back
to day one.
to the original resolution.
Well, no.
Yeah, we go back to the original because the amendment failed.
All the
Would it go back to the amendment that was before that? Yeah.
Let me think on that, what you guys.
Yeah, it might go back to the amendment before.
It's going to come up right away.
I know.
Okay, well, no, maybe it won't. Okay. All right, so yes vote allocates all the money to the Highway Department for bridge construction, and we're not certain about what the no vote yet, except I think it goes back to the resolution, the original resolution, but Rick's thinking about that. Okay, let's vote.
Kurt Skoyen.
Yes.
Ron Johnson.
Yes.
Richard Fry.
No.
Douglas Winters.
Yes.
Sally Miller.
Yes.
Richard Sasha.
No.
John Schultz.
Yes.
George Brandt. Beth Killian.
No.
Randy Tollefson.
Yes.
Michelle Haynes.
No.
John Austin.
Yes.
Chuck Wallach.
Yes.
Tim Zeglin.
No.
Olin Femright.
Yes.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 to 6. Fails.
Fails. We are back to where are we, Rick?
That's what I'm figuring right now. So we had the resolution, the amended resolution that you put it back in the general fund that you had, and then you amended that resolution.
Right.
And that amended resolution did not pass.
So we're back to this.
We're going back to the one going to the general fund.
Okay. And that was his resolution.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, and
That one passed.
I thought,
no, we never voted on it.
I amended it.
I think it passed. I think Sally's motion passed.
I don't know if it was
Just a minute. Just a minute.
Mine didn't pass.
Yeah, we don't go back to his, we're back to the original.
I amended his.
Resolution
His passed, and I amended it.
Rise and then so we have no action, I would say. Then that would be on the original motion as amended by.
Correct. Your amendment passed, but we never went back to go and vote on the.
Right, so the amendment passed, so it'd be the resolution as amended.
As amended.
Right, his amendment
That's where we
passed.
stand. All right, I think.
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
Mr. Wallach has had some experience with this, and I would tend to agree with his analysis.
So our amendment replaced the original, so if we are not passing the amendment, we are taking no action.
No, we did we passed an amendment. We passed an amendment.
But we have defeated the resolution.
Yeah, we passed the amendment, which made that the original resolution. And if the original resolution now is this, we voted that down, it fails.
We torpedoed ourselves.
We are taking no action. That's the way I would probably think.
That's a good point, because it was, we were voting on, you had amended the resolution.
Which
the
became the resolution,
Yep.
and we now defeated the resolution, so we're taking no action then.
Well, but
Bring it back.
we defeated
Let's
the
bring it back.
amendment. It never became My amendment never became a resolution.
Yeah, it did. That's what just failed, 9-6. That's the original resolution as amended, and I wrote with Sally's.
Your amendment became the resolution that was approved.
Her amendment?
Her amendment
Became the resolution.
And that passed, didn't it?
No, it failed.
To replace the original resolution with that.
money stays.
But now, so
So-
that is our resolution that we're voting on.
Right, so the
We're
money
not doing-
is in the line item and it's yet to be allocated.
So we can put it in, can we deal with it at the budget hearing?
We still have not finalized the budget, and the vote on the budget comes next month.
Can we use this?
But we have certainly heard a lot of opinions from various board members about where that money should go.
So, Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
based on that, exec finance will be handling that tomorrow morning.
The exec finance, the agenda for the exec finance committee has been posted, and it says finalize the budget.
Right. Which we can.
Oh, yes, we can.
It says discuss budget as a whole.
It says
So,
discuss budget
yes,
as a
we
whole.
can. As
Yes, we
exec
can.
finance, we can take that ATC fund and put it in here now.
Right, right. We can, as I said, everybody's opinions have surfaced, and the exec finance committee, I'm sure, will take that into, take all those opinions into account when the committee deliberates tomorrow. Am I right, Mr. Rossi?
Yeah.
Okay, good answer.
I'm down with that.
What puts it back to it all goes to my finance?
Well, it all goes back to exec finance, but it'll come back to the full board
Right.
on November, whatever it is.
Okay.
13.
I could have one little highlight.
Paul wants to add something.
I just want to add one thing, that our treasurer does have it in an interest-bearing account, so we are gaining a little bit of interest on
And
it.
I should have mentioned that long ago. Okay, we are down to 17, the audit committee member claims. I want to read that.
Whereas the audit committee has audited the following claims and recommend that they be allowed as follows. John Austin, $657.01. George Brandt, $659.92. Olin Femright, $70. Richard Fry, $655.32. Michelle Haynes, $269.41. Ron Johnson, $167.13. Beth Killian, $314.11. Sally Miller, $0. Michael Nelson, $49.17. Jeannie Nutter, $467.60. Richard Seisha, $736.22. John Schultz, $0. Kurt Skoyen, $307.03. Randy Tollefson, $414.19. Chuck Wallach, $255.78. Douglas Winters, $550.24. Tim Zeglin, $487.34. Total per diems, $4,270. Total expenses, $1,790.47. Grand total, $6,060.47. Now be it resolved that the claims be allowed as shown, introduced by Audit Committee, Tim Zeglin, Michelle Haynes, Kurt Skoyen.
The floor is open for a motion.
I so move.
Motion from Supervisor Wallach, second from Supervisor Brandt. Any discussion? We'll need a roll call vote.
Richard Fry.
Yes.
Douglas Winters.
Yes.
Sally Miller.
Yes.
Richard Seisha.
Yes.
John Schultz. George Brandt.
Yes.
Beth Killian.
Yes.
Randy Tollefson.
Yes.
Michelle Haynes.
Yes.
John Austin.
Yeah.
Chuck Wallach.
Yes.
Tim Zeglin.
Yes.
Olin Femright. Kurt Skoyen.
Yes.
Ron Johnson.
Yes.
15-0.
All right, all the supervisor claims are approved. And I'll move down to the announcements. Well, let's see, there are no elections, there are no appointments. The announcements, I'll just briefly summarize what was in the chairman's report. Please read this, if nothing else, the last 2 hours should highlight the importance of the budget, the whole budget process, and almost all the items in the chairman's report pertain to some aspect of the budget. So please take a look at that. It might influence your vote next month. The chairman's report contains an update on the budget hearings. It gives a dollar number for the tax levy increase. It gives another dollar number for the health insurance rate increase, another dollar number for the county employee pay raise. It updates the sheriff's union contract negotiations, and there was no update available because I had to submit that before the meeting with the city of Whitehall. I will mention, though, that as an announcement, you have in front of you the latest proposal from the city of Whitehall regarding a purchase of the high school lot. This happened Thursday evening. So the members of the property committee will be discussing this, I'm pretty sure, right, Chuck, at the next property committee meeting? We'll be discussing this. The members of the property committee would appreciate feedback from the board. The city of Whitehall outlined 4 proposals, but the committee took no action. The most significant thing that happened is when we got these 4 proposals and we talked about them.
Just I want to add, we want to be transparent here, so we don't go through all kinds of work and then all of a sudden it comes back. So we'd like feedback if you have something on these proposals.
Right, and
I will say the city of Whitehall really wants the courthouse in Whitehall.
And they gave us 4 solid proposals here. The merits of each will be debated at that next property meeting. Let's see, the next item. The discussion, possible action on petition to vacate the County Road Double Q located in Trempealeau County, Wisconsin. We had the public hearing on this a month ago. And I hope everybody can recall what happened at that time. The board referred the matter back to the Highway Committee for reconsideration, but now it's back in front of us. So is this this is a petition? Does this take the same procedure? Motion, second, vote. Okay. So Paul, you going to read this again?
I don't think we have to read it.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve the petition.
All right, we have a motion to approve the petition. I heard a second from Randy Tollefson, from Supervisor Tollefson. Is there any discussion or questions about this petition?
We did discuss this at our last highway meeting, and there is no GTA aid for this road. It never has been. And the only reason it was there in the first place is, like he mentioned, it was a residence that lived beyond the used county crew. And since then, the county has purchased that property. Highway Department has purchased that property, so it's all Highway Department land back there, and it'll eliminate a bunch of fire numbers for us, and we'll just be able to better patrol that, save a lot of possible, somebody getting hurt out there, liability. So it's in our best interest to close that road.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor Austin. Any other questions or comments? I guess we better do a roll call. We'll do a roll call vote on this.
Beth Killian.
Yes.
Randy Tollefson.
Yes.
Michelle Haynes.
Yes.
John Lawson. John Lawson. Chuck Wallach.
Yes.
Tim Zeglin.
Yes.
Olin Femright.
Yes.
Kurt Skoyan.
Yes.
Ron Johnson.
Yes.
Richard Fry.
Yes.
Douglas Winters.
Yes.
Sally Miller.
Yes.
Richard Sasha.
Yes.
John Schultz.
Yes.
George Brandt.
Yes.
15-0.
The petition is accepted, if that's the right word, by the board. So I think we still have to go to some other agency for approval?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
We notified the department, the State Department.
Okay, I guess that's it then. Let's move to the committee reports. Paul?
They're in your mail and they're on your desk.
Boy, the briefest of budget reports, general fund report. I don't have it in front of me, Paul. You do. What? Can you give us a summary of what is our status right now?
Our general fund right now is at $1,879,943.63, and our sales tax we're at $1,259,789.85, but the budget on that is $2,020,000, so we're $760,000 short on that, but we have 5 months to go on it too. So,
Okay. Any questions about either of those?
and then the update on the,
As far as the sales tax, we are $98,874 ahead of last year.
Well, that's the glass is half full then.
See? There we go.
Any other questions about those reports?
and then also the update on the expenses. So far this year, we're at 72% expenditure.
Okay. Any other questions on those reports? Everybody's getting impatient. I have no correspondence to bring before the board, so let's move to the last one.
I'll make a motion to pay the per diem mileage.
All right, we have a motion to pay the per diems from Supervisor Fry, second from Supervisor Johnson. We already had a second all. Any discussion? I'll have to do a roll call again.
Michelle Haynes. John Ossip.
Yes.
Chuck Wallach.
Yes.
Tim Zegler.
Yes.
Olin Femright.
Yes.
Kurt Skoyan.
Yes.
Ron Johnson. Richard Fry.
Yes.
Douglas Winters. Sally Miller.
Yes.
Richard Seisha.
Yes.
John Schultz. George Brandt. Beth Killian.
Yes.
Randy Tollefson.
Yes.
15-0.
All right, the motion passes 15-0. All right, remember to take a look at those budget, the chairman's report with all that budget information. Executive finding, it'll come up next month. Adjourn at 9:18.